Hey, Chub here, and today we're looking at the new September balance update that we got. We finally got some kind of update to the balance. Um, However, giving this a scan through, can already say there's not going to be many changes coming from this. It's some moves in the right direction, um, and it might shuffle things about a little bit for Arena, but open world, the impact will be very minimal aside from a few spells. But anyways, they said about how, yeah, feedback on whip being too strong, they've touched on that. Defenses being oppressive, void is strong in raiding, projectiles, they're wanting to buff, rebalancing of frost school, um, to make it less punishing, and some underutilized ults getting buffs. And they've also said about going into next update, the major one, which won't be till next year, they'll be able to do some bigger, more functional changes then, but right now it's purely number based. And they've said about like a dual system as well, which would be good. I think especially for PvE servers, it gives people the opportunity to like try PvP but with low stakes. So that is actually good if they manage to implement this. But yeah, for now we've got a small patch, but we'll be waiting till next year for big changes. Yeah, starting with whip, a small slowdown to the primary attack. That's the thing they say about the like DPS on this weapon being low. The trouble is it's not the DPS of whip that matters, it's the fact it is the same kind of range as pistols, yet it hits immediately. So that's what makes it oppressive. It's the fact that you can outspace people rather than the fact you're just out damaging them with the weapon. So this will make it a tiny bit weaker, but whip spam certainly still be strong. Blood Fountain, increased damage, reduced cast time. This is only really an arena spell right now, but it was already kind of strong, so this might actually be a pretty scary thing to face for arena duels. As for open world, there's no reason why you want to use this when you have health potions. Crimson Beam. Now this one actually is one of the biggest, because this ult is already terrifying, the amount of damage it will do. And if it gets its full duration off now, it'll just be hitting even harder than before. So that actually is a pretty noteworthy change on Crimson Beam. And this actually probably will have some relevance in open world as well, because there are situations in raid if you're on Scholar Blood where Crimson Beam is good. The only trouble is it doesn't go up or down stairs. However, if you're on like flat land, then Crimson Beam is a really, really good ult. So yeah, I could see this having a little bit of impact. Blood Rage, small nerf, just to the shield modifier on the jewel. Yeah, that doesn't change anything. It's still a top tier spell. Like the shield isn't really what makes it strong. It was a tiny shield anyway. Didn't make much of a difference to do this. Okay, Chaos Tree. Aftershock, 10% damage increase. It's a little better. It's already a decent spell, so Aftershock's actually going to be pretty strong now. And Void, like they said about how this will be to reduce its effectiveness in raiding. But yeah, I don't know. Like you'll have to aim it a bit better now, so it's kind of less spammable. But I don't think, like, it's no change at all to its DPS. It's slightly faster as well. So I think overall it's kind of good, because yeah, you have to properly aim it. You can't spam it quite as much. With the radius being this small, I think it'd be hard to hit raw voids, but it already was versus Rogue Blood. So I can't imagine this being a particularly impactful one. But with Aftershock getting better, this makes Aftershock a lot more appealing over the Void, or just taking the combo with both of them. But yeah, Void, I can't imagine it being a big difference. Unholy, Skeletons. I'm not exactly sure what this means. Improve the accuracy of the Skeleton Apprentice. So this is the like Skelly Mages. But yeah, once again, this doesn't touch the actual issues with skeletons. I had the whole video talking about that. So yeah, not particularly impactful at all. Like Unholy getting this short of a section, like yeah, the whole spell tree of minus the soul burn is going to continue being ass. Changes to wisps: reduce lifetime, increase speed, and reduce the healing effect is pretty nice. What like this is actually like more of an arena change. Like the wisps are at their most annoying in duels. Once again, like yeah, just healing in general is more affecting arena servers because you'll just have your health potions in open world. But it helps a little bit there and they've done some mosquito changes specifically here as well, which is the main thing that abuse duel. That abuse wisps. Sorry. Wisp dance. Increase recast projectile damage. So it's not often that you actually end up using the recast. This actually is a surprisingly strong ult if you know how to use it properly. So it might actually end up being used more. It's just, yeah, the barrier to entry using it is quite tricky, and it takes some getting used to. So it might be a little bit more popular with that small buff, but yeah, that is small. If it was the spinning damage, then it would be more significant, because most of the times you don't recast it. But if you do, then there are times there where it gets a lot of bursts from the recast, and that'll just be even higher now, especially because it's 3 projectiles that it casts, so this is actually like a 30% buff rather than 10%, as in 30% spell power, not like 30% overall. Spectral Wolf. Increased number of bounces. Oh, the number of bonus from 1 to a range of 1 to 2. I mean, pretty minor. Obviously, in a 1v1, no impact at all. This is mostly a sort of PvE buff, or a buff if you're playing versus skeletons for some reason. But yeah, that's pretty small. This one is somewhat significant again. It's a 20% damage buff on Mosquito. But they have nerfed the healing of it. So what this means is, depending on how easy it is to do the spider mosquito one shot, because they have done some other changes that will affect that, but it will now be even easier to do the mosquito one shot compared to before. So I don't know about that. Like, yeah, I'm not sure on this change, because that's like a decent damage buff as well. But yeah, not a big difference. It's certainly a buff for open world, because once again, healing is more arena focused, and that is a big nerf to the healing. But a 20% damage buff as compensation is decent. It makes it a lot better when you spear Q with it. Ray Spear. This actually is kind of cool. I think the spell will still be terrible. It, for some reason, got a nerf to the damage as compensation for this, but cancelling the cast now gives you a shorter cooldown. So using it for the mobility is a lot better than before, because it used to actually be bugged and go on a longer cooldown than normal if you cancelled the cast. So overall, this is a really big buff, even though it got that nerf to the damage. So it might actually be good now, just for the sake of the utility you get from being able to move around with it. Having an extra dash is nothing to scoff at when it's on a relatively short cooldown now. And finally, for Illusion Tree, we got Phantom Aegis getting a small reduction to the shield, and I don't know. Aegis is good. It probably wasn't justifying a nerf in comparison to some other things, though. I don't know. I suppose, on the other hand, though, it's not as bad as it sounds, because you also have to remember that when it breaks, you get the fear, and functionality-wise, Aegis will still be doing the same thing in that sense. And if anything, it makes the fear easier to get, although there's so many ways to play around it that this is certainly a nerf overall. Despite the fact it makes the fears easier, you'd rather have the bigger shield values. Next is the Frost Tree, which probably has the most changes of anything. So first of all, there's been a general change to it, where you get a bigger shield when you have a freeze on you. Pretty much meaning you'll be able to take more damage before the freeze breaks, and this doesn't really make a difference unless it's a short freeze. If it's a long freeze, then you can weave in like a couple autos and then you'll do the same amount of damage anyway. If it's a short freeze where you don't have time for that, that's when you'll see a difference. So this has nerfed freezes overall, but they've always been a very big staple of PvP, and they'll continue to do so because it's just a very easy way to lead to a combo. And as compensation for this, a lot of spells have had increases to their damage, especially the damage to Frozen. So yeah, Ice Nova increased damage to Frozen, Crystal Lance. I don't think this needed this. It already hit so hard that this puts into, yeah, dangerous territory, even if the shield is bigger than before. Like that's, I'm not sure about this one. But yeah, Crystal Lance also got 10% more on its damage to chilled. Frostbat, just a flat damage increase by 5%, along with a increase to the area damage, which is not quite as impactful, but yeah, a 5% flat buff. I think this does help it overall, even if it is doing less damage to frozen targets. You would usually not Frostbat directly into the freeze anyway. You usually combo like Axie or something first. So yeah, this is certainly a nice for Frostbat overall. Cold Snap. This is one of the few good, like, hopefully meta-changing ones, because a lower shield and the freeze getting even shorter. It was already quite tight, but if you can't whippy out of the freeze anymore, I think you'd be able to on the first, but with diminishing returns, you shouldn't be able to after the first freeze. Yeah, Cold Snap is going to be weaker, but if we just skip ahead a tiny bit, Discharge hasn't been touched. So all this does is anyone that was running Cold Snap will run Discharge in its place, and you effectively have the same build. Rogue Blood's also untouched, so you would still run Rogue Blood. And this is kind of what I'm saying, where it won't, like, with all of these changes, in the grand scheme of things, there's not much that's going to change, because the only, like, things in the meta that have been impacted, they have a very easy and obvious replacement, and the nerfs they've had isn't significant anyway. The things that have been buffed around it aren't impactful enough to take its place, so you lead to this situation where everything's kind of in the same state it was already. Which is, yeah, like, why I say sort of, for big changes, we're going to have to hold out till the big patch. This small patch isn't changing a huge amount, aside from little shifts if you want to try some, like, new builds or whatever, which, yeah, like I say, helps a little bit, and it's a nice gesture that they've done these changes, but yeah, things like this on the Cold Snap are not going to make a big difference, even if this spell alone does get taken less. There's still Discharge in its place that was effectively on the same level. And Veil of Frost, lower freeze duration as well. This could affect the Mosquito Crystal Lance combo. If you can't do the Spider Mosquito Spear Q, then it makes that a lot weaker, which I think it would be too short now to do that, which is probably a good thing, because that combo starting from Macy Frost Dash was really gross. If that is still possible though, and the execution's just tighter, then the damage is even higher, so you'll get one shot even more often. That's the scary part. But like I say, I don't think that combo would be possible anymore. Which is, yeah, good thing. Ice Block, this is a fairly nice buff, a 50% damage buff and a bit more shield. Like, yeah, ult will maybe be alright now. It's is a bit below average before, but that's actually a fairly significant damage buff. So yeah, I could certainly see it being okay in more situations. And alongside that, both the Frost ults got buffed, and we got 25% more damage on Arctic Leap, which is, yeah, also nice. Pretty directly buffs my Crystal Lance Chaos Barrier build, because, yeah, it's very reliable taking Lance and Leap, just super easy combo, and adding extra damage onto that is nice, and it definitely outweighs the nerf to freezes overall with the bigger shield that people get when frozen. And finally, we've got a few changes to Storm with Polarity Shift, tiny damage increase. Yeah, doesn't change much. Polarity Shift is decent already, but I think this refers to the Novas, which means I'm pretty sure these only deal more damage if you're like in melee range, hitting them with a shift. And even then, it's a pretty small increase. I don't think hitting them with the regular projectile at long range, this will have any difference. So yeah, very, very small buff here. And Ball Lightning, the early recast, actually gets 30% more on the early detonation. So this thing, that actually could be noticeable if you're playing sort of Scholar Ball Lightning or something. The spam of this should be a lot more annoying than it was before, because that's the trouble. It did like no damage at all with the early detonation, and they'll never be stood in for the whole duration before. So yeah, this helps it a bit. Lightning Curtain, more damage per tick. Doesn't really matter getting more tick damage. Like, that's not really why you play it. And it got the shield reduced for some reason, which it really didn't need. Lightning Curtain was not a good spell right now, so that's as kind of an unfortunate stray bullet that Lightning Curtain's caught here, because it didn't need more nerfs. Like, it's perfectly fine the state it's in now. If anything, it was now a bit mediocre. So unfortunate for Curtain, but oh well. And finally, Lightning Typhoon, the ult, gets more speed on the initial cast, and it lasts for longer. The main problem with this ult is still the fact you can get CC'd out of it. So having more speed is, once again, it's a small help, but not a big difference maker. So yeah, like I say, that's the run through of it. But this is a minor balance patch for sure.